Hey, good afternoon. We're going to get started. My name is Ann Haubrick, and I am the Grants and Programs Senior Manager at the Regional Arts Commission. And this is my colleague, Chloe Smith. You want to say hello, Chloe?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. You can tell it's been a day. Thank goodness it's Friday.
And we have never done a workshop like this before in RAC's history, so we hope this proves helpful to all of you. Before we do get started, I wanted to say that we will take questions after the presentation, and the way that we'll do this is for you to write your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. At least it's the bottom of my screen. And at the end of this presentation, you should receive a brief Zoom survey. It's an anonymous survey. So please fill that out and be very honest. Let us know what your takeaways were or what wasn't so helpful, etc. And then a recording of this presentation will be available on the RAC website, probably by Monday. And we can also get the slide deck to you as well. So look for that. Before we get into the meat of this presentation, we are going to go through some pretty foundational things about the application process for both program support and artist support. So bear with us, and then we'll get into the part of creating your narratives very soon. So the agenda will be that we just said hello to you. We're going to go over the RAC priorities, the mission and vision, the guiding principles, the core values, because I think that's all really important when you're creating your narratives for the application. And then we'll go over the RAC workshop series overview, which is taking place through February. And then we will go over accessing the application, the eligibility for both artist support and program support, the artist support overview, the program support overview, and then we'll get into creating the narrative and how some tips on how you might be able to do that effectively, not just for RAC grants, but for any grants that you may be applying for. And then we'll have the Q&A. So RAC's priorities, we'll start with the mission and vision. As the leading public catalyst for arts and culture in St. Louis, the Regional Arts Commission leverages the power of creativity to strengthen and enrich our community. RAC envisions a full creative life for every St. Louisian, St. Louis as a growing and captivating arts and culture destination. And we also envision a community rich with opportunities and resources that promote and sustain artists.
RAC's guiding principles are that we invest in the region's arts and culture through our grants, programs, and special initiatives. We believe in diversity, racial equity, accessibility, and inclusion. We build partnerships that strengthen our community. We are passionate champions that support and recognize artists. And finally, we believe every child deserves a well-rounded education that includes the arts.
Our core values embody our culture, spirit, and dedication to living our mission. They keep us grounded and help us make good decisions about everything we do. We are passionate champions for arts and culture. We are accountable stewards of the public trust. We are committed to practices that promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We are socially and civically engaged community catalysts, and we are servant leaders.
RAC's mission, vision, guiding principles, and core values are a balance between our passion and interest and the needs of our community. The Grants Committee and Grants team at RAC has worked to be sure our new grant cycle reflects our mission, vision, principles, and core values, which help ensure our process runs smoothly or as smoothly as possible.
And that part is always a question mark.
We try our best. Now we're going to talk about the workshops that are still available. The first three that were the basic grant application writing workshop, artist statements, and the VLAA financial statements clinic have already happened. The first two, the basic grant writing application, are basic grant application writing, and artist statements are available on the website. They've already been posted. So if you haven't seen one of those and you think they might be helpful, go ahead and take a look at racstl.org. The ones remaining that we have are the narrative one that is today, building your application budget, which is also for program support and artist support grantees. And that will take place on Thursday, February 9th from 4 to 5 p.m. And then we'll have completing the RAC Artist Support Grant application, which will be Monday, February 13th from 3 to 4 p.m. And then completing the RAC Program Support application, which will be Tuesday, February 14th from 3 to 4 p.m. And those will all be virtual live sessions where you can join us live to kind of hear from us and ask your questions, or they'll all be recorded and posted to the website so you can follow up and receive any information that you need.
Great, thanks, Chloe. I'm going to go over the program support eligibility. And then Chloe will go over the artist support eligibility. So we have a local focus. The arts programs and projects must occur in St. Louis City or St. Louis County. That's because we get that money from the hotel room sales tax and we have to do it in those regions. You must be a 501c3 organization in good status as a nonprofit corporation in the state of Missouri and a 501c3 tax exempt status from the Internal Revenue Service, or be a unit of federal or local government such as a library, county, or municipal agency. Our grant cycle, arts and culture programs and projects must occur during the applicable grant cycle, and an organization may submit only one application per grant cycle. The proposed program's primary purpose, PPP, must be the creation, presentation, or utilization of art. And the program for which you are applying must take place between July 1, 2023 and June 31st of 2024.
Great. And as Anne mentioned, I'm going to run through artist support eligibility very quickly. So there is an age requirement. The artist must be 19 years or older. There's a non-graduate student requirement that the artist is not enrolled as a full-time undergraduate student. There's a local focus requirement, and the artist must be a current resident of St. Louis City or St. Louis County, similar to our program support requirement, and has maintained primary residence in St. Louis City or St. Louis County for at least 1 year, and we will require verifiable documentation. There's a current work eligibility requirement, which means in the past 3 years that the artist has created and presented their own original works to the public or performed for the public, and will also require documentation there. And then finally, for the artist collective, which is for a group of artists applying for an artist support grant, at least one of the artists has created and presented their own works in the past 3 years, and the collective has created and presented for at least 1 year. And this also will require documentation. And then just as a final note, all of these requirements apply to individuals applying on their own and to artist collectives that are applying in a group. Now I'm going to run through just accessing the application and how this will kind of work if you haven't created an account before, or if you have. So in case that you haven't created an account, you're going to want to create an account. You can use the link to apply on the RAC website when the applications are published on February 13th or the week of February 13th. And you will hit create an account right where the cursor is. And then after that, you'll be able to add your email, confirm your email, and set up a password. And that will allow you to access the application, or in this case, the eligibility quiz to access the application. For program support applicants, there will be an extra step in where you'll be required to enter in your organization's tax ID to access the eligibility quiz. That just allows us to know that you're a registered 501c3 or that your fiscal sponsor is a registered 501c3. And then finally, you'll answer the questions in the eligibility quiz to finally get to the application.
And now we'll go
go
over the grant review criteria for the artist support and program support. They're pretty much the same for both program support and artist support because we wanted to make it simple and meaningful. So the first criteria, which is weighted the heaviest, is at 40%. You can read more about this in our grants guidelines, which you can find on the RAC website. So that is cultural and or artistic essentials, weighted at 40%. For artist support, that means a culturally and artistically significant practice or work that contributes to the creative life of the artist and ultimately to St. Louis. For program support, that means an organization that produces or presents culturally and artistically significant work that supports a full creative life for every St. Louisian.
Our second review criteria is community benefit, which will be weighted at 30%. For artist support, this means an artist that demonstrates broad community benefit with a practice or work and contributes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the community. For program support, this means a program that demonstrates broad community benefit and contributes to advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the community.
And then our last criteria, which is weighted at 30%, is capacity and sustainability. For the artist support, that means the artist is intentional about their artistic practice, capacity, and sustainability. And for program support, that means an organization that intentionally plans for program capacity and sustainability.
And now we're going to take you guys through the questions for the program support and artist support grant application. And I'm going to begin with the questions that are for artist support. So your first question will be about the essentials. So you'll provide an overview of your grant request, indicate if funds will be used for a personal project, or a personal need to support your artistic practice, or is of course where you'll upload a copy of your budget. The eighth question will be about artist capacity. We'll ask that you describe your ability to carry out the proposed project or your regular practice based on factors such as resources involved or outlined in your qualifications. And here we'll ask for you to provide your qualifications either as a CV or a resume. And then the ninth and final question is about sustainability. We'll ask that you provide a project or practice growth and development statement. And I think we did lose Anne. I think she's trying to get back on. So I'm just going to continue into the program support application questions. So this should mirror artist support pretty closely, but we're going to go through them anyway. So also addressing essentials, we'll ask that you provide an overview of the programs, our program, and what is the purpose of the program for which you're applying, and how does the program support the mission of your organization. Your second question will be about cultural and or artistic significance. We'll ask that you explain the program's artistic intention, who are the artists and creatives involved in implementing your program, and we'll ask that you upload up to 3 work samples. The third question will be also about program goals. We'll ask, what does success look like for this? It should be program here. So what does success look for this program, and identify and explain your goals, objectives, and outcomes. The fourth question will be about audience. We'll ask you to provide an overview of your program's intended audience. The fifth question will be regarding diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We'll ask you to describe how your organization is committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We'll ask that you also describe how your program makes intentional efforts to attract and or retain diverse audiences and increase access to the arts for underrepresented individuals and or under-resourced neighborhoods. If your organization has a board-approved DEI statement, policy, or plan, we'll ask that you upload it below. And if you don't have one, please indicate your organization's intention of developing such documents. And then, of course, you'll have the opportunity to upload that statement, policy, or plan here. Your sixth question will be about community engagement. How is the work connected to the community, location, or context? Do you have community partners for this program, official or unofficial? Who are they, and in what ways do these partnerships inform or support your work? The seventh question will be about budget. We'll ask you to upload your program budget and provide a budget narrative describing the organization's ability to carry out the program based on factors such as people and financial resources. The eighth question will be regarding your organizational health, and we'll ask that you upload the provided organizational health worksheet, which should be published to the website. And then the ninth and final question will be about sustainability, where we will ask you that you please provide a program growth and development statement. And now we're going to talk about creating your narrative, which is perfect because I believe Anne is back.
Great, now I'm back, I think. Next slide, Chloe.
Perfect.
Great. So how to put together an effective narrative. The narrative component of your application defines your project's scope and purpose, and it explains how it will be executed. Effective narratives are succinct, organized, written in clear, direct language. And your goal is to explain your project so well that a reader or reviewer understands the breadth of the project and is convinced of its value. The narrative will help viewers determine if your work should be funded and how high or low your application will be scored.
Perfect. And I'll kind of talk about what is in a narrative. So an application narrative is the core of your application. It typically covers the purpose, significance or impact, so why this is important, a program description, as well as a timeline, projected outcomes, as well as a budget and your budget narrative.
An effective grant application will provide reviewers with the details of what you are proposing. You'll need to demonstrate that you and your partners, if applicable, have the qualifications necessary to make good use of the funds. And then we ask that you review the guidelines again. Keep going back to these. They are your friends. Review the guidelines and application questions so that you can understand RAC's priorities and language that we use to express them. Take note of the series of attachments RAC requires of the applicant. And then I just want you to note that the attachments uploads for the program support and artist support are different from each other, and we'll go over those later this hour.
Perfect. And then as you're preparing to write your narratives.
And let me break in here for a moment. As you're preparing to write, writing an effective narrative is all about the art of written communication. And we know that this process can be challenging, and that's where we're trying to give you some tips and hints on how to do it pretty well.
Great. And so we'll just ask that you think through all the details of your request and in clear details of the items like specific audience, location or locations where your project will take place, qualifications of staff and or partners, potential challenges you may face. And we ask that you begin by copying and pasting application questions into a Word document. And this ensures that you don't lose anything you've created in the grants portal. I think that's just grant writing best practice, right, Anne?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that can be so frustrating if you go and you lose something after you've been working on it so hard.
True.
So this will be your first draft. So write fast and furiously, get all your ideas out on the paper, get those details down. There's no need to worry about the word count at that point when you're doing that first draft. Just get it out there and then use the wording from the application question and the review criteria. It's okay to reflect those back to us when you're writing that first draft. You may not have room for them in your second draft and may have to cut some words. So once you respond to all 9 of the application questions, go over what you've written, determine whether or not you're happy with it, see if it explains everything that you're doing, do a word count, and then revise and edit again. Get it to where you really like it.
Yeah. And then so after your first draft and your next draft, you'll want to make sure you've responded to the question and the corresponding review criteria, which you can find in the guidelines. We'll want you to cut out the fat and to not go overboard on abbreviations, to write for a general audience, and to check to see that you've addressed the who, the what, the when, the where, and of course the why. We'll want to know who is implementing the project, what activities does the project consist of, when will the project take place, what are milestones in the project's timeline, where will the project take place, And then why is the project relevant? Why are you the right person or the right organization to do the project? We'll ask that you consider how you assess your project's success, and this should align with the goals of your project.
I want to go back to 2 points Chloe just made, and one is about the abbreviations. If you aren't using the abbreviation later in the narrative, don't abbreviate it. If you're just using it once, no need to abbreviate it, just spell it all out, because you just want to stay away from that jargon. And then refrain from using language that is too technical beyond what may be known by your audience and or the reviewers. So we just want to make it very clear to everybody that's reading your application what it is you're doing and what you're requesting support for.
Great points.
Okay, speaking of goals, so these performance measures define the success of the project, the program, or the need, and those are goals, objectives, and outcomes. I know we went through this in that first workshop that we did, but these can be kind of tough to get the hang of if you're not accustomed to doing this. So that's why we're going over this again. So goals. A goal is a broad statement, a summary of the big picture, future focused, perhaps long-term, intangible, difficult to measure. And I think Chloe is going to give us an example of a goal.
Sure. For example, our goal is to build on partnerships to expand our programming reach.
Very good, Chloe.
Thank you.
And, I would caution you to not get too many goals into your proposal, because too many, you want to make it simple and you want to make it simple to go back and assess later. So don't do too many, and make sure that those goals align with RAC priorities. In terms of objectives, we like to say that an objective usually is SMART. So that means it's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. An objective is a narrow statement, a precise description of end products, clear and concrete, tangible and measurable. And, there's some words that we like to use, action verbs, when you're writing an objective. And those can be things like assess, create, define, describe, develop, explain, etc. And I think, Chloe, do you have an example of an objective for us?
I for sure do. So an example of an objective could be by March 30th, we will have established contact with 3 community-based groups who have an interest in our concert series.
Very good, Chloe. An outcome. An outcome is a statement of humanistic benefit, change, or effect. An outcome is measurable. It is a valuable tool for answering the so what question. And it is a way to highlight long-term impact and value. Chloe, do you have an example of an outcome?
I do. The proposed outcome is that our presence is increased without overburdening our limited staff capacity.
Very good.
And then review. So we'll want you to take a look at your narrative, and are you happy with it? Does it represent what you are hoping to convey? Find a trusted colleague or friend to read what you've written and ask the reader what questions they may have about your project after reading what you've written. It may help you to clarify what you need in your narrative. We'll ask that you incorporate revisions during this time and then also do a final spell check.
Great. I just want to go back to one point that Chloe made. So working with an outside reader is helpful for catching details you might have overlooked because you know your project so well. So we just think it's a really good idea to have that another set of eyeballs on your application.
And should we mention about the pre-application timeline here?
Yes, please. Will you, Chloe?
Yeah, so we do have a pre-application timeline that is required for first-time applicants and program support, but it's optional for all other applicants. And this would just give you the option for, if you don't have someone else that can review your application, you can just submit it early to RAC, and RAC will provide some feedback to you prior to the final deadline for the application. So you'll be able to get that feedback back, and then you can implement it.
Thanks, Chloe.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to talk a little bit about attachments or uploads right now. So be sure to check the application and guidelines about the required attachments and uploads, but we're going to go over those right now.
Yeah, and I'll start with the artist support grant required uploads. So the first thing that you'll be required to upload is your proof of residency documentation. This could be voter registration, automobile registration, income tax, or property tax receipts. And then just keep in mind that if you are applying as an artist collective, you'll need this for each member of the artist collective. Another required upload will be the artist statement, which will be either a narrative document, or you can link to a 90-second video, which you will record your artist statement. The third required upload is a budget template, which you can download from the RAC website. You'll fill out and then you'll upload as a PDF. There will be a required resume or CV for individual artist or for each member of the artist collective. You'll be able to upload up to 3 work samples of your work, giving the reviewers an idea of what project you're doing or what program you're doing. And then there's finally a list of contact information for artist collective members, if applicable.
Very good. I'll go over the program support required uploads. If you're using a fiscal sponsor, you will have to have a letter from that fiscal sponsor, and you'll see page 3 for requirement instructions of that. You must have a board of directors list, and that list will include the roles and affiliations of those members. There's also a program budget template that you can download from the RAC website. And next week, I think we're going over those budget templates. So stay tuned next week for that. Another upload for the program support are the financial statements for the 2 most recently completed fiscal years or most recent audit. You will also see samples of that on our website. You can include up to 3 work samples. You can include a critical review if you have one and if you want to do it. If it's a good review, maybe you don't want a bad review up there. Any review gets you publicity, though. Also, we're asking that you supply us with a DEI, a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. If you have one, a statement, policy, or plan. And then there is also an organizational health worksheet, which you download from the RAC website. Very basic questions about your capacity and your operations.
Yes. And then so once you've completed all of your narratives and answered all your questions and then submit or uploaded all of the required uploads, you are ready to submit. So ensure all
Yay!
elements of your application help to tell the same story, from narrative sections through document uploads and the budget. And then we ask that you aim to submit at least 1 day prior to the deadline. And just keep in mind that RAC will not accept any late submissions. So it really is important. Just make that deadline in your mind 1 day earlier and try to get things done just so you don't have to worry about it at the end.
Yeah, because sometimes it can happen, like just what happened to my computer earlier. Something can crash if you're doing it like 5 minutes till the deadline or 3 minutes to the deadline. And we don't want that to happen for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Technical issues are out of our control sometimes.
Exactly. And then if you have any technical questions, and this is in the guidelines, this email address, please email that address. And then if you have questions about process, get in touch with either Chloe or me.
And then I think we're ready for any questions. I think I will leave it on the contact information slide in case anybody has any specific questions and wants to email us. But yeah, if you want to drop your questions into the Q&A box, we'll answer those live with the last 30 or so minutes we have.
Great. I see that Lisa has asked us, can you apply for the artist support grant for the same workshop that happens every year? Absolutely. And I would try to perhaps distinguish it somehow, like maybe talk a little bit about, the impact of your prior workshops, but I think that's perfectly fine. Are there other questions? Well, there's one.
Great. Yeah, keep them coming. We don't have that many in here.
Can I apply if I am in St. Charles County? I'm sorry, no. Because we receive our money from the hotel room sales tax, and that's St. Louis City and county only, we have to limit our region because we're stewards of that tax money. So I'm terribly sorry about that. But do stay on our mailing list, because in the future, who knows if we will broaden our footprint.
Great. And I can answer Linda's question. She asked, can you repeat the examples of goals and objectives again? So I'll just run through all of them again because they build off one another. So the first one, our goal is to build on partnerships to expand our programming reach. Again, our goal is to build on partnerships to expand our programming reach. The objective or corresponding objective is that by March 30th, we will have established contact with 3 community-based groups who have an interest in our concert series. And I'll repeat that again too. By March 30th, we will have established contact with 3 community-based groups who have an interest in our concert series. And then finally, the outcome, the corresponding outcome, is our presence is increased without overburdening our limited staff capacity. Again, our presence is increased without overburdening our staff or our limited staff capacity.
Very good. Thanks, Chloe.
Yeah, no problem.
John asked, when doing a program grant, do we specify a budget amount we are asking for? Absolutely. You will be able to specify what tier, whether that's 15, 10, 5, or 3. So you'll have to specify that tier, but then there's another box where you specify the exact amount that you're requesting from us. I hope that makes sense, John.
Yeah, and the max is 15,000, so you can't go above that, but you could potentially do 14,500, for example.
Exactly, and that's program support. The maximum
Yes.
amount that can be requested in artist support is $7,500. So that's up $2,500 from last year. Hi, Pam. Pam says, I'm applying in creative writing. Is the minimum maximum word count for my 3 samples, and can I include works from this project as well as past projects that are completed and published? Let me take this chunk by chunk. So your samples will be, unless you are including a link, you have to include, you can only do 3 single pages for each of your work samples, and those could be past projects that are completed or published. I think that's perfectly fine. And I think that probably answers your question, Pam. Chloe, did you think that was clear enough? Did I speak to that clearly?
Yeah, I think so. So it kind of sounds like she might have some long writing samples, which she could link to. But I would suggest uploading up to 3 pages of maybe a single writing sample, because you'll also have your resume and your CV on there too. So we'll be able to see other things that you've done. So I hope that answers your question. And if it doesn't, feel free to submit another question or to reach out to us via email.
Great. Alexa asks, can an organization apply for program support for various programs within the organization? For example, 1 application for arts education, 1 for summer camp. Absolutely. Yes, you may do that for a program support application, more than 1 program within your organization.
Yeah, so it's more than 1 program per application, but not more than 1 application per organization.
Yes. Diane asked, will the slides be available or are they in the program support guide? We will make the slides available and there will be a recording of this. Even though we missed a little bit of it, I think a very bright coworker of mine, thank you, Lee, went ahead and was recording when we weren't. So yes, the recording will be available as well as the slides, and that should be early next week. I'm thinking Monday or Tuesday. Oh yeah, and that answered Jamil's question too. Can you apply for more than 1 artist grant? 1 for a project, 1 for sustainable? No, 1 application per individual artist. So yeah, we have to limit it to that.
Sarah asked if there's an underscore between the MS and the RACSTL in the technical questions email. There is an underscore, but you can also find that email on our website. So if it's easier to just go to our website and click on that, you're more than welcome to do so.
Yeah. Hey, Sarah. Andrea asks, if applying as an artist collective, do we need to show that we have exhibited together in the last year? What if we share a studio space together and are applying to fund our studio space? I think that absolutely, if you're, that's a legitimate question and a legitimate need. So I think you just need to make your case within your application, and I think that would be fine. Lisa asked, what if you don't have 2 to 3 years of financials for the project support grant? My question to you, Lisa, would be, are you a new organization? Are you a first-time applicant? And if you are, not only a first-time applicant, but are you a new organization? So if you are a brand new organization and you don't have that, but you've got your 501c3, you can upload that explanation into that place in the grants portal where it asks for that upload. And if you have questions about that, don't hesitate to contact Chloe or me. Janet asks, can we submit examples of our work and practice that have taken place outside of St. Louis? I think absolutely you can, but I would just make sure that your documentation on your where you live is very clear when you have to do that, but I think that's fine. Brittany, can I apply if I am an artist writing a one-woman show to then later produce at a venue? Absolutely. If it all takes place within our program year, which is July 1 of 2023 to June 30th of 2024, that absolutely works.
Dolores asked, would a prior program evaluation summary be helpful or a participant satisfaction survey draft? And yes, yeah,
absolutely.
I think that would be very helpful.
Aileen asks, I need some clarity on the purpose of the grants for individual artist support. Is this grant only for artists who are doing community-based projects for exhibition or participation? No. This is for whatever it takes to enhance your practice. If you need help paying for your artist studio, then do that. If you have a project in mind, of course, that's always a little bit more appealing to our reviewers, but both are completely fine.
Yeah, we kind of keep this for artist support grants in mind that it's project, opportunity, or need. So if you need some new supplies or there's an opportunity for you to travel to learn more for your artistic practice, or if you do have a specific project in mind, it will support any of those.
Yes. Somebody asked, can I apply for artist support for a project and my organization apply for program support if they're two separate projects? Yes. But also be very careful in separating those two when you're applying, because we have a sense of who's applying for what. So please make sure that that's very clear. Stephanie asks, I saw that you also received ARPA money from the city of St. Louis. Are these grants separate from this or part of this grant cycle? Completely separate. We have yet to determine how we're going to, we know how we're going to be using that ARPA money, and there's very strict policies and regulations on how we can spend that money because it's federal. So we have not opened that up yet. This is just the hotel room sales tax money. Catherine asks, is the pre-application feedback just for the first-time applicants, or can previous applicants take advantage of this opportunity as well? Absolutely. First-time applicants in program support must submit a pre-application. The artist support don't have to, but we also welcome everybody, whether or not you've received REC money or applied in the past, to send in a pre-application. Katie asks, what is a CV? That is a curriculum vitae, which is similar to a resume. So you do need to have that resume or that CV. And I think if you Google CV, you'll be able to find out the difference and how to put that together if you don't have a resume.
Catherine asks or states that there was a mention in the artist grant about proof of work in the last 3 years. Does that mean all the work samples have to be within that time frame?
No, they could be prior to that. Yeah.
Great. I was thinking the same thing. They could be from any point. Carolyn asks, could a RAC reviewer indicate if an artist support grant is a strong candidate? It is for an eligible project. I'm at a limited capacity and it's for a time-sensitive need. I might be a little confused by that question. I don't know if you mean prior to submitting an application or after you submit an application. If a reviewer can indicate if it's a strong candidate.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by that too, Carolyn. So if you want to write another question, or if you want to get in touch with Chloe or me, you know,
Yeah, we'd be
via
happy
email,
to-
that would be great. We're happy to talk with you.
Yeah.
Tracy asked, can you apply for a program grant and an artist grant? We answered that a little while ago. If you are a part of an organization that is applying to us, but you also have your own practice, you can certainly apply, but you'll have to make a very good case and about the separation of those two. Like, I wouldn't want you to have, for example, to have your own theater company, and to be like the artistic director of that theater company, and then applying for an artist support grant where your company is producing that play. So you just must be very careful. Zane asks, can a self-taught beginner apply for an individual artist grant? Absolutely, Zane. I think self-taught artists are sometimes our best artists. And but just make sure that you fulfill all the eligibility and have all the things in place that we require for the artist support.
Helen asks, can work samples for musicians be 3 links to videos, or is it better to have 1 video, 1 audio, and 1 review?
Oh, I'm Eileen, not Helen. Hi, Eileen.
Oh.
That's great. Mother, daughter. So I think that's up to you, whatever you think is best.
Yeah,
So
I
whatever
don't
you
think
determine to
one
be your
is
best
stronger than
work.
the other.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
so either. Brittany asks, can I apply if I'm an artist writing a one-woman show to then later produce an event? Yes, I think we answered that a little while ago.
Yeah.
Cameron, hey Cameron, if my organization applies with multiple programs, such as a film and a stage production, how would I apply for each program in the same application? And would I be required to split the grant award for each project, or would I be able to receive funding for each program independently? Let's see if I can answer this. I can answer it, but I want to make sure that I'm very clear. You may apply. Wait, where did that question go?
I can still see it. Do you want me to read it?
There it is.
Okay.
My computer today. So I'm telling you, it's not my technical day.
Oh, no.
But yes, I would say, Cameron, you can absolutely apply for more than one program within your program application grant. And the way you write your budget is the way that we would prefer that you split that money up. So if you've got one that one performance or one play or whatever that is going to cost more than another, just, detail that in your application budget. And then and if things change, because here's what you'll learn next, what we'll talk about next week when we talk about budgeting, is that your budget is really a plan. So we know that sometimes, like, you write that budget and that plan, and then you decide to do something a little different, or a venue fell through or whatever. So we understand all of that. But I think that you can absolutely do that. Chloe, will you get that next question? I want to make sure that I'm
Yeah, I think it's because I was dismissing thank you comments, so we could kind of get more closer to the bottom. So Catherine asks, also confirming the deadline is March 27th. Is that 5 p.m. or midnight? While I usually complete in advance, it is also good to know.
We're going to timestamp yours, Catherine. I'm kidding. It'll be midnight. So we try to give everybody a little bit of that room.
Yeah.
Courtney asks, I wanted to have several art exposure festivals in coming years for survivors of STL St. Louis gun violence. I'm putting art, chess, and violence prevention together for youth 13 to 25.
Oh, I don't think we have a question there, Courtney, but if you want to follow up with that, we'd be happy to answer it live.
Yeah. Zane asks, have you ever granted a grant to people who seek money to aid them in travel to enable them to work on the subject they wish to share with the world? Like, I'm into nature and ancient things. If I needed to go to Costa Rica or someplace with beautiful animals and nature to take photos of, do you help people with things like that, or how would that work? Yes, you may use that money as long as it is enhancing your practice. You may do that. And as long as, you know, the budget reads clearly and you make a good case for yourself, I think that would be fine.
I would agree with that. And I would just suggest, Zane, maybe submitting the pre-application just so we can really help to make sure that your message gets across, because I think these applications can be difficult for reviewers to understand sometimes.
Cameron asked, what would be the pre-application review deadline? Chloe, do you have that in front of you?
I do. So the pre-application deadline, so the application will open in the management platform the week of February 13th, and the pre-application deadline will be Monday, February 20th. So you'll only have a couple of days, but the good news is that all of the application questions are already published on our website in the guidelines. So open up those guidelines, read them, love them, and then all of your application questions will be in there, so you can copy and paste to a Word document and you can start today.
Yeah. Genevieve asks, is it important to have insurance if doing a community art project at a local college for any of the students who participate? If so, can the grant cover that? I would say yes, and I would say I would check with, if you are doing that in partnership with the local college, I would ask them what their regulations or policies are for insurance. And then if that is a feasible amount and it works within your budget, I think that would be fine.
An anonymous question is it advised that for program support applications, all programs are written into one application and not separate ones under one organization? And yes, that is true. You can have multiple programs for which you are applying, but they must be in a single application. You cannot have multiple applications for one organization.
And John asks, as a theater producing a 5-show season, is it better for the grant request to focus on a season of shows or an individual show? That's completely up to you. You could ask for support for the whole season, or you can decide to focus that support on an individual show. Up to you completely. Have we gotten to the end of the questions?
I think we have.
Wow.
We can give it another second or two or minute or two to see if any more roll in, but for the most part, I believe we've answered them all.
Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you, for attending this afternoon. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to be in touch. We will have the slide deck sent to you, or it'll be posted on the website, if not sent to you. I can't remember how we're going to do that. And then the video will be posted as well early next week. We have our budget workshop next Friday, so please join us for that if you want to. And please take the time to respond to the questionnaire that you will receive right after this to let us know if this was useful or not. And we really appreciate your attendance and for asking good questions, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah. Happy weekend.
And I do have a final question for Eileen that I just want to answer while we're still
Sure.
here. She asked, for clarity, does the grant money have to be designated and accounted for in the budget on the application? And I mean, essentially, yes. And I would suggest maybe attending our budget workshop just to learn a little bit more about that, because we'll really be able to break it down and go into details of how you can budget for things.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that is all of them.
Okay. Well, thanks a million, all of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.